the scoreboard.
Are you trying to stack the deck so you can get back in the race?
Swing and a miss on a changeup now.
It is a changeup, and it is ridiculous.
What's his name again? Scott Harris.
Turns, throws, got it, what a play! Oh, man!
Have a Seat with Jason Benetti and Dan Dickerson. Presented by Feiger Law.
Welcome once again to Have a Seat, now presented by the fine folks at Feiger Law. And they have commissioned a very special episode to launch their sponsorship. We have Scott Harris, President of Baseball Operations for the Tigers, here today. Hi, Scott.
Hey, guys.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
So in our jobs, we like when we say things like, he hasn't homered for a while, and then it's a homer, right? We enjoy that because it's like, oh, man, we did all this research, and finally it actually landed. You said over and over again in spring training that you were going to have young at-bats and uneven at-bats and offensive performances. You've been right to this moment as we sit here. How does that feel with what you've watched this year?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of always want to be wrong on the positive end. Like, you'd rather have, like, a low variance offense that puts up, 7 runs a night. But, in my job, I study pitching and hitting for a living, and the game is telling us that's really hard to be a young hitter in the big leagues right now. It's really tough. We could spend an entire podcast on hitting in the big leagues right now. Our path forward has to depend on young hitters getting opportunity to make adjustments and demonstrate that they can really help us moving forward. That's the path we chose over the last 20 months that I've been here. And I remember talking to you guys in spring training, and one of the things that I said was there are going to be days when this offense looks unstoppable. We've seen that. We've seen it against Houston, Arizona, Toronto, Milwaukee, White Sox this weekend. That's really fun. Those are flashes of the talent that we have in the big leagues right now, and that's coming. But I also said there were going to be some times where it's a struggle to string together competitive at-bats against starters every night who are exploiting young hitters' weaknesses, and we've seen that too. It's tough to be a young hitter in the big leagues, but there is no substitute for these reps that they're getting. It's not like we can send them to a different league and then they can come back ready to hit this caliber of stuff. There is no other place on earth where you can face the quality of pitching in terms of pure stuff and command that these guys are facing every night, and they have to learn how to make an adjustment. Fortunately, we have a guy in the outfield who has been through it all in Riley Greene. If you remember his first year in the big leagues, it was a struggle. I wasn't here for that, but I saw from afar, and it was a struggle. And look at the type of hitter that he has become. If you're a little worried about some of the young hitters, like, there are plenty of examples of guys that have already come through this path and come out the other side and become really good hitters.
So as you evaluate, when do you make the decision to send a guy to go back to a level that he's probably not going to learn a whole lot from because he's not going to see what you just talked about, the quality of these pitches, and when to let him battle through it? We've seen Parker Meadows, Spencer Torkelson go down. We've seen Cole Keith grind through it, and you stayed with him. And now it looks like we're starting to see why you signed him to that deal.
Yeah, I don't think our evaluation of hitters is limited to outcomes. We look at a lot of other things when we evaluate our hitters in the box. Sometimes when you're evaluating hitters, you can see mechanical issues that they are working through. You can see approach issues. You can see preparation issues. Sometimes you can identify concrete adjustments that you think that a hitter needs to make, and sometimes the big leagues is not the right environment to make those adjustments. So sometimes we send them down to the minor leagues with clear plans, clear concrete goals for them to achieve to come back up. And in those situations, I think it's better to send a hitter down to work on those things out of the spotlight and then come back up. And sometimes there are hitters that are doing all the right things, and the outcomes just haven't really caught up to the process. They haven't caught up to the things that they're doing consistently every night. I think, we're just starting to see that with Colt. We saw it in May, and then he went through a little bit of a slump in early June, and now we're starting to see it again. He had a really good day yesterday. I will also say, part of my job is to make sure that I'm studying league trends across all 30 organizations, not just ours. I think sometimes when we watch baseball, we can see some young hitters and think that they're uniquely flawed. You can see them, struggle, and it's like, oh, maybe this guy's just not good enough. If you look around our league right now, it's pretty striking what's happening. You can chop up the samples however you want, but by way of example, if you take a look at every hitter 24, 25 years old or younger, either one, it's the same takeaway. In their first major league season, so the first time facing major league pitching, the average OPS for that group of players is 600. So it's over 100 points lower than league average here. And then, so that's striking in its own right. And then dig a little bit deeper and think who are the hitters in that population? It's only the super elite guys. Because you have to be a super elite guy to get to the big leagues that young. You have to be like a Colt Keith who has, conquered the minor leagues to even get into that sample. And then now we're in late June. To stay in that sample, you have to have shown enough flashes in the big leagues to demonstrate that you belong here, that you should stay here to fight through those struggles. So we're talking about that group. So a subset of the super elite, and they're still performing on average 100 points lower than league average. It's really tough. And so all around the game, these guys are struggling, but it's a reminder that we got to be patient with these guys. We got to support them. It takes real mental fortitude to grind through these struggles and come out the other side the way Riley Greene has. And we're confident that these other guys are too.
Fans don't have the obligation to be patient, and they choose not to. I did when I was a kid. I'd pace around and sit in the proper couch if I thought something was going to go wrong if I didn't. So rationality is not my bag as a fan. So you're very patient and you have to be in your job. But if I'm sitting at home and I'm like, I know he conquered the minors. First of all, how did he conquer the minors, Colt Keith? And then second of all, what makes you stay patient? And what could I look for as an 8-year-old Crazy Town sports fan that would make me go, oh yeah, I see that.
Yeah, we can dig into the details on that, but I think the simplest way to remind yourself to stay patient is look at the best players on our team. There was a time when Tarek Skubal was giving up a ton of homers. Dan Dickerson was calling a ton of homers for Skubal. He was giving up a ton of damage, especially on his fastball.
I was too, actually. Just in a different place.
True. And look what he has become. Reese Holson got beat up pretty bad in Toledo last year in the first month, and then he had some struggles. And look what he has become. Riley Greene's first season in the minor or in the big leagues was a struggle, and look at the type of hitter he's become. Mark Canha put up some rough years in Oakland before he made adjustments that unlocked a really productive, long, lucrative career for him. There are countless examples. The best players in baseball often struggle really early in their careers, and they come through the other side with a series of adjustments against the type of competition they're facing at this level. So I would say look no further than that. We can't just jump off the train with some of these young guys because we're going to miss some really good years in the future.
This is as serious as we've been off the top of one of these shows. I feel like you got very serious very quickly. Can I ask you why you're holding a baseball?
I usually do, just around the office. I don't know.
Really?
Maybe, yeah.
Like grips? Are we what are we doing?
I don't know. Maybe it keeps my hands occupied or something like that. Yeah.
How long has this been going on?
Pretty much my whole career. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
At the lowest level, you were intern walking around holding a ball?
Yeah, we back in Chicago when I was really young, when Theo was the president of the Cubs. It was a pretty fun environment in the office. When you were walking from office to office, you better duck. You might get hit in the head with a football or something like that, or someone was hitting golf balls or whatever. I probably picked it up there, but.
You lived in the Brady Bunch house?
Pretty much. And it was the old offices, too. It was these tiny little, damp offices. We were, climbing on top of each other. Jeff Greenberg was there, too. And there's some pretty funny videos on iPhones around the game right now of antics that Theo would pull. But I think that's probably where I picked it up.
Will you send one of those to Lydia Cruz, our producer of the
sure.
podcast?
Oh, we have
just put it on Instagram or something.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Exactly.
Is it hard for you to sit still watching a game?
Oh, yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
You don't often, do you?
No.
Are you used to doing something else?
Yes. Yeah. It's funny in these jobs, like you have to come off on these podcasts as like, calm, disciplined, unemotional executive. Like that's not me at all. Like ask AJ, like there's some fiery debates that happen after games. And I think the reason for that is like, I'm really passionate about Tigers baseball.
You're a fan.
Yeah. I mean, I feel really close to the fans in that, like at the end of the day, I'm a fan of the Tigers baseball too. Like it's all I really think about other than my family and friends. I would say there's some notable differences between me and fans. One, I get paid to come to Comerica Park every day, whereas fans pay to come see us, and I don't take that lightly at all. Like against the backdrop of a world in which like it feels like there are higher prices everywhere these days. Like our fans are spending their hard-earned money to come watch us play. They're jumping on planes and meeting us in different cities. They are spending their time and money to watch you guys on TV at night, and they're probably listening to this podcast too. And I gotta tell you, that motivates the hell out of me. Like it's really inspiring. It convinces all of us to work just a little bit harder to try to make sure that this organization gets to October and ends this sort of drought, but also gets there over and over and over again, because we saw what the Lions did last year. We saw how the city responded to that, and we want to do the same thing here.
You and I both jumped on board of this franchise in the midst of that playoff drought. You know how long you want your thing to take. I know what I'd like to do as an announcer, but we don't show up in a vacuum. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I've been here, 20 months or so. But I know the history of this organization, and I hear it a lot. It's been a while since this organization has played, into October. One of the differences between me and fans is, I'm really emotional when I watch the Tigers play, but I actively have to divorce emotion from decision making. I have to find a way to let those emotions from me and the fans, energize me and motivate me without impairing my decision making. So I have to find a way to push the organization forward in a healthy, constructive way. That means building it the right way. That doesn't mean chasing shortcuts. So by way of example, there were some opportunities in recent winters where there were players available in free agency or via trade that seemed like great fits for us.
I gave you some advice this winter.
For sure.
Is that what's on that notepad?
Yeah. They seem like you could just add to this team, plug and play, with strengthen your lineup, strengthen you out of position, strengthen your pitching staff. And they would have won a lot of headlines. The optics would have been great. People would have been really fired up. Like it would have galvanized like sections of our fan base. But in hindsight, when you look at what happened to some of those players, not all of them, but you look what happened to some of those players, they would have been mistakes. They not only wouldn't have strength in areas of our team, they may have underperformed and blocked a young player who deserves an opportunity to demonstrate that they can be a mainstay at that position moving forward. So in this job, I got to find a way to continue to push us forward because sometimes those shortcuts don't end droughts. They extend and deepen those droughts. Sometimes steady progress with young players setting the stage for big leaps on the horizon is actually the fastest way to get to October and continue getting to October every year after that.
So how do you handle stretches like we just saw? 10, 1, 1, 1, 0, 2, 11. You say you have lively discussions with AJ.
Yeah.
Are you talking about, come on, I mean, as AJ said, you can't just yell at players. That doesn't usually work.
Yeah.
What are your lively discussions?
I mean, one thing we talk about a lot is we talk about team offense. We talk about team-wide approaches to starting pitchers. I think, in those games where we exploded as an offense, where we scored a ton of runs, even the one this weekend, we had an entire lineup full of hitters that were bought in on a plan and hyper-disciplined on a plan and didn't veer from it.
That day.
And that's really hard. It's easy for me to talk about. I don't say this nearly enough on the record. This game is really hard. It's really, really hard, and these players feel it every day. But we are trying to push team-wide offense that creates more consistent run support for our starters every day. That's what we've been talking about a lot this week. I think we've seen flashes of what that can do, but we got to achieve the level of consistency that will allow us to take the next step as a team.
Major League Baseball has kind of done the equivalent in recent years of changing the rules like you would in blackjack to make the dealers stay at 16. That changes all of the trickle-down decisions you would make with the cards at a blackjack table. So we see teams like Milwaukee come in and like prioritize contact, and Arizona last year stole as many bases as you could possibly dream up a couple years ago. How has the way a team gets built, in your mind, changed because of and maybe anticipating future rule changes, if at all?
It changes quite a bit. I think the fundamentals that lead to winning baseball haven't changed all that much. But I think there's a lot more athleticism in the game now. It's one of the reasons why we changed the profiles we were chasing in the draft last year to adapt to the environment that we are facing every night. It's also because we play in this park. Playing in this park and in this division, you should expect to play a lot of close games. How do you win close games? You do it with dependable pitching and really good outfield defense. Those have been two priorities for us. I think dependable pitching, especially starting pitching, can stabilize an entire team. And particularly outfield defense in this park is really important. Here's how I think about outfield defense. I think about outfield defense as every rangy play that we don't make is leverage for our pitcher, whoever's on the mound. If there's a play in the gap or a play over our head or whatever, and we don't make the play, there is a runner on second base, third base, or worse if there are runners on base. So if we can find a way to take a gapper and turn it into an out consistently across 6 months, the run value advantage of that is huge. It's huge, not only in the sense that we're going to allow fewer runs. It's going to be fewer pitches, fewer stress pitches in the stretch for our pitchers. We're going to get off the field quicker, and we are going to create the big run value swings that lead to wins. So instead of turning outs into gappers, if we can be the team that turns gappers into outs, it's going to help us in ways you can quantify and even bigger ways that you can't quantify. So it's going to be a big part of what we're doing moving forward.
I always think of Kansas City, 2014, 2015, biggest outfield along with Colorado and Detroit. They just wouldn't let a ball drop.
Yeah.
Is that one of the best examples you've seen? Of
Yeah.
How because it absolutely.
Those old Pirates
impacted.
teams, like we went into, with the Cubs for the 2015 wildcard game, we went into PNC Park and they were running out 3 center fielders. It's one of the reasons why we prioritized trading for Matt Vierling, an athlete like him. We took Max Clark, 3rd overall. You guys should fly out to Florida and see a Florida State game. He can really go get it out there. We have Parker Meadows, we have Riley Greene, we have Wenzel Perez. It's going to be a big part of how we build this team moving forward.
You're a pretty good athlete. You played soccer, you played lacrosse. You played lacrosse at UCLA club level, which is a very high level. People should know that.
I don't know about that, but
I'm guessing you were attacked, by the way. Were you attacked?
I was, yeah. I was
Behind the
small and
cage,
fast.
or where were you?
I was small and fast, and so I tried to use those tools and hide the other ones, or the lack of other tools.
So were you behind the cage?
I was a wing.
You were, okay.
Yeah.
So you weren't the best passer, you were the best scorer.
You
As
could snipe.
we played a pretty sophisticated offense, and that we were always moving. So it's like more like the Steph Curry type role, where you're just like always running from side to side, trying to like shed a defender.
Big Bill Tierney fan? What were you?
Yeah, I was never good enough to play for him, but
I know a little much about lacrosse, so please take us somewhere else.
But I'm just thinking of the things you learn. I mean, we all learn from team sports. Those are sports with 9 and 10, 11 players on the field, soccer and lacrosse. You saw how the pieces fit together is endlessly interesting to me. And how you're trying to specifically target skills, but also the person as you add to this clubhouse. But you never know how it's going to work when you drop that person into a clubhouse. As you said, I mean, the chemistry is created from those guys. You're trying to set the culture, but so what are some of the things that I think of the San Francisco team that was supposed to win 78 games and won 107? Can you think of some of the things that made that team, either the types of personalities or the players that brought that clubhouse together to make the whole better than the sum of the parts?
yeah, I mean, I think it starts with the job is to build a team, not a roster. So you need to build pieces that fit together, that complement each other. You need to build a group of 26 that can perform at a much higher level than the sum of the parts. But in terms of the intangibles that help you be just a little bit more consistent, or a little bit more prepared, or a little bit more disciplined, what happens inside the clubhouse really, really matters. I think back to those teams in San Francisco. We had a really strong culture of preparation and discipline for that team that won 107 games. And it's one of the reasons why that team was able to stay focused across 6 months. Because if you remember, we won 107 games, which usually means you win your division by like 15 games. We won by 1 game on the very last day because the Los Angeles Dodgers won 106. So we had to beat the Padres on the last day to win the division. And the strong leadership that we had, not only just from the veteran players, but even from some of the young players that brought a level of energy that was contagious in the clubhouse, really drove that team to stay consistent across, the 6 months. You can't give up any games and win 107. You can't take a single day off and still win 107. I think it's one of the assets that we have here. You guys are in the clubhouse every day. I'm sure you see the chemistry that these guys have down there. They really like each other. They really actually hang out with each other. Sometimes when you travel with a big league team, like you get to the hotel in a visiting city and everyone scatters. Like that doesn't happen with this team. They go out to dinner together. They go hang out together. They go to concerts together. Just because you can't quantify it doesn't mean it's not valuable. That's really valuable for us. I think part of it has been luck in that I inherited a group of guys that really like each other, but we do our homework when we're signing a free agent or when we're acquiring a player via trade. There's a lot of resources out there that can help you get to know a player before you actually talk to them. And then specifically with the free agents, it's a big reason why we sent AJ Hinch out to Vegas to sit with a guy like Jack Flaherty. We wanted to see how he was going to fit with this group. We wanted to see what it was going to look like. You can't get all the answers, but we can certainly do our diligence and try to answer as many of them as possible.
He's a pretty good recruiter.
He's pretty good. Yeah.
He's all
I
right.
hope he paid for dinner too.
So we hear a lot about Jack Flaherty as a success story. Right? How much are you willing here to get into the nuts and bolts on what you think Jack saw? Not even what's happened here, because that's a big part of it, but what you think Jack saw in everything around here that made him say this.
Yeah, I mean, I hesitate. I don't want to speak for Jack. Like, I know you guys have asked him his perspective.
I just asked you a double hearsay question,
Right,
so I understand where I am on that. But it's actually your opinion of what you thought he saw. So I've negated any hearsay issues. So you can go ahead and answer.
My own
Counselor.
opinion of what he saw. If you remember, in my opening press conference, I talked about wanting to create a destination for players. I wanted to create a place where players could come confidently knowing that they were going to get better when they got here. It's one of the things I'm most proud of here. We got a long way to go. We got to win, and we got to win here for a long time, and we're working day and night to make that happen. But there are some small success stories along the way, and I think this is one of them, and it's worth spending some time on. It started with some of the conversations we had shortly after I was hired about some adjustments that we wanted to make to the pitching development here. We wanted to pitch differently. We wanted to prioritize different things. We wanted to create a level of open-mindedness and adjustability among our pitchers to try new shapes, to try new attack plans, to sequence differently, to try new delivery adjustments, to take this obsessive pursuit of getting better and apply it to the clubhouse. And all of the credit for that goes to the players that have demonstrated the open-mindedness and the willingness to constantly work to get better. And Tarek Skubal is a great example of that. He is performing as well as he has, but he's constantly trying to find ways to get better. So it's a great example for us to have. But I do think in this organization we are pitching a lot differently. And I think one of the biggest markers on this journey was Michael Lorenzen. We convinced him to come here. We convinced him this is the place where you can come and get better. And it was hard at the time because we didn't really have a reputation for that. But we shared a plan with him. We took that plan from the idea stage through execution. He came here. He had the best first half of his career. He became an all-star for the first time, and he helped us acquire a 21-year-old second baseman in Double-A named Hao-Yu Lee, who, by the way, is one of the youngest players in all of Double-A, and he's also one of the best performers in all of Double-A right now. And so when you have that combination, it's usually predictive of future success. If you're the youngest player at the level and you're one of the best players at the level, it's usually a sign of really good things to come. And now Hao-Yu Lee is one of our best prospects. So I think, staying on the pitching vein, that was a big moment for us, but there were a few others along the way. Bringing Tyler Holden here was a big one. Finding some breakthroughs with Skubal and Reese Olson and Foley and a bunch of the guys that are pitching well right now was a really big part of this. And I think all of that laid the groundwork for developing a reputation that we could sell to Jack last winter. We had real concrete examples to point to. Again, the players deserve all the credit for actually creating those breakthroughs, but the environment they were in definitely contributed to the breakthrough that they had and the level of performance that they had. So it became a much easier sell to Jack than it was to Michael that first winter. And that's the type of thing that if we can get our evaluations right, identify adjustments for players to make, and then also see those adjustments from the idea stage through execution, it's going to serve this organization really well, and it's going to help us win for a long time here.
Trade deadline's coming up in just a matter of, 6 weeks away or so. The speculation starts in like May. Oh, they're going to trade this guy. How do you, whether it's Jack Flaherty or anybody, you're trying to, 78-win season last year, trying to obviously build on that total. How do you balance this is a team that's kind of getting to where we want it to be. They might actually be in contention for the third wild card. Balancing, we could really get a lot for this guy, whoever that might be, but we also want to send the signal to this team that we're actually going to go for it this year, or at least continue with this group we have because we're doing something really good right now. How do you balance that?
I don't in late June. Honestly,
we'll
just
call
focus.
you in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we're just trying to beat the Phillies today.
Yeah,
I know AJ tells you guys that over and over again.
Yeah, he told us that just the other day.
It sounds like a talking point. It's really not. It's like our guiding principle. I don't have to make that decision for a month. And so we're just going to try to win as many games as we can for a month. And hopefully we climb back into a wild card spot or climb back closer to the division. And we make that decision really, really hard. That's what we're working towards
every day. That's the best scenario possible.
Absolutely.
Make that decision really hard for me.
No matter what the team is doing, we're going to prepare both sides of every trade deadline. Every year, we're going to prepare both sides because that's the way I was brought up in Chicago, and that's the way we did it in San Francisco. We're going to do all the work. I assure you we're going to do all the work, and we're going to make the decision at the last possible second. And we're going to try to make the best decision we can. But as far as stewing over how to balance all those things, I try to insulate myself from that because it's still pretty far away, and we got a big draft coming up.
So you asked the question about lacrosse and soccer, and it's been rolling around in my mind. When you lost a game, how were you?
Not great.
What does that look like when Scott Harris loses athletically?
I'm obsessively competitive. I think I look inward first. It's always hey, what did I do? What did I do to lose this game? What could I have done better? Could I have set up a teammate better, to score a game-winning goal or something like that? So it always starts inward, and then
sounds healthy.
Yeah, exactly, right. And it exists in this job too. I think that competitive passion is the reason why I'm here. I first look inward, then I look towards process adjustments that can head off of future mistakes or misplays or whatever. You have to be obsessive in these jobs. You talk to AJ every day. He's the same way. Our text thread is long and unhealthy. I promise you that. But through that, obsessive nature of revisiting decisions, auditing decisions afterwards, it sets the foundation for really healthy decision making moving forward. So
how do you know?
How do I know?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like when we have to make decisions, we have thoroughly vetted every angle possible of every fork in every road, because that's how we try to do it here. And I also will say that, one of the ways that I evaluate myself, and one of the ways that I try to get better is I don't just evaluate the decisions we made. I evaluate all the non-decisions that you guys probably don't even know about. Like if we said no to a trade and that player's performing well somewhere else, I'm beating myself up over it because I should. And if we say no to a trade and that player is like really struggling somewhere else, like I revisit, the most persuasive pieces of evidence that convince me to say no. And same with free agency, same with all these decisions. So if you can broaden the universe of decisions and non-decisions that you made and be hypercritical of yourself and, dead honest with yourself, it can help you, get better in this job and hopefully make better decisions moving forward.
What's your competitive outlet now?
I run a lot, like not for the physical benefits at all. It just allows me to like
just to
turn
get it out,
my brain off. We also had a daughter who is a great outlet for me. So coming home to Rosie every day has become a great outlet that I didn't have in my younger years.
It's got to be amazing.
Yes. We were actually joking the other day that, she can't talk yet. She's 2 months, and
you're a little disappointed. The competitiveness in you,
as every parent knows. You'll just be like holding her in your arms, and she will, discharge something, and she'll just look up at you, and it's almost like she's just saying, clean it up. And that keeps you really humble. At the end of the day, like no matter what's going on with the Tigers or any of this or these podcasts or whatever, it cuts you down to size, and I need that from time to time.
I know that look. I know that look.
Exactly.
Sounds like human Twitter.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they're like, yeah, take that.
Yeah, you're gonna clean it up. I know you will.
You can sit with that.
Yeah.
Why did you choose? You could have done a lot of things in the corporate world, in the real world of like real jobs where you're not just doing sports for a living like we're all fortunate
international
to do.
economics, that type of thing.
Whatever it is, why did you choose something that draws so much criticism, rightful and otherwise, as your daily earthly pursuit? Because sometimes the angry Twitter people are right.
Yeah. I mean, listen, like progress in these jobs is messy. It always is. There's so much randomness in the sport. These decisions are really hard. That you're dealing with human beings. Hitting's really hard. Drafting players is really hard. But sometimes if it's not hard, it's not worth doing. And also, I've been very blessed in my journey in baseball. I was in Chicago and we won the World Series and 5 million people showed up to a parade. I was in San Francisco. We won more games than any team in the history of the Giants organization. And we saw the energy that created in the city. And as I referenced earlier, I saw what happened when the Lions did what they did last year here. And this place was electric. And so in those moments when it's 2 a.m. and you're, watching a reliever in Double-A and you're wondering, what am I doing with my life? Like you can remind yourself of those moments and how like these jobs are just so much bigger than us, like so much bigger than even these organizations. Like there's just a lot of people that invest a lot of their time, money, and energy into the Tigers, and you kind of feel like you're fighting for them. You feel like you're working really hard for them, and if that doesn't motivate you in these jobs, like you should probably go find another job.
You 2 a.m. you're watching a Double-A?
Yeah, of course, routinely. My wife thinks I'm nuts.
Your wife Ellie is not a baseball fan.
Oh no,
not a baseball fan.
Not at all.
Dude, what's Rosie going to become? Is what I want. Go ahead.
Scout.
Yeah.
Hey, a true story. The day Rosie was born, she watched us beat the Rays in Game 1 of the series in Tampa from the hospital bed on my phone. Yeah, I'm sort of ashamed to admit that, but we played great that night.
The
sincerity
with which you said, "Boy, we played great that night," is astounding.
Yes, of course.
But Ellie has come to know that this is. I mean, it's amazing. How do you balance it? I guess I always think of that. Your job is not just 24/7. It just seems like it's 28/7 if there are 28 hours in a day. Are you able to now with a baby girl to be able to shut that off when you go home?
Yeah. I mean,
Well, until
You shook your head first. There was a half no, physically, and then a yes.
yeah. Yeah, I shut it off when I get home and then turn it right back on when she goes to sleep.
As soon as everybody goes to sleep.
Yeah.
Evan Petzold wrote a great story that fascinated me. I think it was when you were hired. He didn't talk to you in the story, but he talked at length to your mom, apparently, and your brother, Chris, who had nothing but nice things to say about you, by the way. But the way he started the story was how you would go to the backcountry, whether it was Lake Tahoe, maybe it was Colorado, put skis on your back, walk up the slopes. You've been skiing since you were a kid. And that's how you would get your release, clear your mind. Your mom said that's when you get creative. And you'd ski like a maniac for a day. Can you describe what that's like, why that appeals to you so much? And are you still able to do that in this job?
Not as much in Michigan as
Right,
as
you
it was
would definitely have to fly away.
Yeah, exactly. As a lot of people who played sports growing up can relate to, you grow up playing sports every single day for 16, 18, 22 years. Every day you have this competitive outlet. You have something that can get you going every day, and it's usually organized sports of some kind. And then you join the working world, and then that's it. Like you can't do that anymore. And one of the reasons why I jumped into baseball is I had this competitive void inside me. I'm too competitive to, go do something else. But also, I shifted a lot of that competition to myself. So like when I'm running or skiing or something like that, oftentimes I'm sort of competing with myself, trying to push myself to do things that are uncomfortable or to, beat your last time or go on this shoot in some part of Tahoe or whatever. That's just the way my mind works. That's the way that I've always, found a release. And I find it in an odd way restorative. I know most people don't, but that's just how I've learned to both, kind of cope with all of the demands of these types of jobs, but also to find a place that is both, restorative and energizing for me so that when I get back to a job like this, I'm, a little bit fresher and a little bit more prepared.
I wonder if you would call yourself an introvert or extrovert.
Introvert, for sure. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, in these jobs, it forces you to be a little more extroverted. You kind of have to in these public, interviews.
Our own little extrovert.
Exactly. Yeah. No, undoubtedly. I think most people that know me really well would call me an introvert.
Why? What's the most introvertish thing you do?
Watch games by myself. Yeah, when I was growing up in the game during my formative years in Chicago, we always used to just gather in the GM suite, and Theo and Jed and everybody would be up there, and it was just a pressure cooker, just like such an unhealthy pressure cooker. And Lay would hate me for saying this, but Theo would just stress eat for 6 innings in the back. Inevitably in the highest leverage moment, Jed would snap and throw his phone against the wall as if he didn't need his phone right after the game. And I was just man, this is not an environment I want to create if I can ever run a baseball team. And so I don't do it. I've unsubscribed from that part of the game, which probably makes me an introvert. So yeah.
So you watch the games by yourself. You don't want any of that around you.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have a new sponsor on the podcast.
Yes.
And just for a moment, I'd like to divert. If you were going to change the rules to Feiger Law Pick the Stick, what rule changes would you make? What would you give points for and subtract points for in this current day and age?
I think you have to look at it in terms of total contributions instead of just offensive performance. We're trying to contribute to a win here, so there has to be some sort of defense and base running.
How do you quantify that?
Veerling had a really good catch yesterday.
But how do you say really good catch?
+2.
That was a really good catch. Give me points.
How sophisticated do you want to get?
Extraordinarily or
Sure.
not at all?
I
Your
don't
call.
know. Use catch probabilities or something like that.
That makes it harder to play.
Are you trying to stack the deck so you can get back in the race?
That's an ad hominem attack that I don't appreciate. And yes.
Yeah, that's what I would do. I would go total contributions.
So defense, base running.
Yeah.
Any command of the strike zone thing, like anything you would add there?
I mean, in terms of my preference, yes, I would include some sort of strike zone discipline, but I don't know what you're optimizing for. Other than getting back in the race.
This is why I like talking to you about details like this, because immediately you go into like structuring the like.
Oh yeah.
That's how your brain works.
Yes.
And I appreciate it, but I'm also fearful that you're going to spend any time on that question after we leave this room.
Yeah.
Will you?
Yeah. Well, you should go bonus points for whichever player gets the hit that gets us curly fries. That should be like an extra like couple points.
There it is.
I think
There it is.
it could help you get back in the race too. It's like the golden baseball idea.
The golden baseball idea being.
You know, they're floating around a new rule that there's like, you know, certain pitches are worth more, or like certain pitches you can bring a player who's already been used, or like hit out of order or whatever. So.
Do you like that?
Not as much. I kind of like the double hook DH rule. I think that's a interesting way.
Which is where if you pull your pitcher early in the game at some standard, then you lose your DH.
Yeah.
What would that make you do as a front office?
I think a lot of the elements that we used to, or a lot of the strategies we used to use in the National League before the DH would come back into play. I grew up watching National League baseball and really enjoyed the extra dimension of strategy that created. So I think you would be much more intentional about starting pitching usage and how you're structuring a game. And then I also think it would lead to some very difficult decisions in the 6th, 7th inning for guys like AJ. And I think, you know, fans being in tune with the trade-offs that exists adds another level of, you know, intellectual stimulation to watching our games.
Of all the ideas for trying to incentivize using starting pitchers deeper into games, is it better to work from the penalized point of view, or you get a bonus if your starter, say, goes 6 or 7, and now you get to bring that guy back that came out of the game in the 5th inning?
Yeah, I think it's a bonus.
You like the bonus. In other words,
Carrot or
reward,
stick?
Yeah.
I will say this: it's actually a good time. I know the podcast is not about compliments for you too, but I will share a compliment with you guys. Oftentimes, I watch baseball all the time. I watch different broadcasts, and sometimes I think that broadcasts can become echo chambers of conventional baseball wisdom. I really appreciate how you two like try to inject different angles, different ideas, different theories on what we're seeing in the game, because there are a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes to push our game forward. There are a lot of new strategies that are infiltrating our game in a really interesting, healthy way, and exposing our fans to some of the things that we are trying to do every night and some of the things that other teams are trying to do against us every night. I think makes our game immeasurably more interesting, and hopefully, you know, Tiger fans have become more engaged with what we're doing and how we're doing it, and I appreciate you guys being the narrators of the story.
Appreciate it. We're always open to compliments. Always.
Frequently.
I've assigned one.
You do?
Oh yeah.
I don't. How come I didn't get one of those?
I'm gonna put it on eBay. You can buy it.
People still use eBay?
I don't know.
All right. We got to wrap, but a couple names. If people wake up at 2 a.m. with their kids and want to watch a couple prospects, I know it's hard to cherry pick because you love all your prospects.
Yeah.
But a couple people who are interesting to watch right now with what they're trying to adjust in the minors as we go away here.
Yeah, I would encourage fans to check out that draft class from last year. As I said, we started chasing different profiles. We used a different strategy with our money to try to deepen the class of players that we could get. So we signed Max with the first pick at a bonus that allowed us to get Kevin McGonigal and Paul Wilson. You should take a look at those guys. Jaden Ham is a right-hand starter who's one of the best starters in high A right now. Jim Jarvis, Carson Rucker, Brett Callahan, all those guys. They're really fun to watch.
You're pretty excited about this class.
I am. So, and it's a tribute to our scouts for going the extra mile to get these guys. And yeah, I would encourage our fans to check those guys out. They're pretty fun to watch.
Scott Harris. That was weird. We should not be together that much. Yikes.
You finish. Go ahead.
Scott Harris, thank you so much for the time. What's his name again? Scott Harris.